Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we're doing a little run through. I believe this is our last mock draft from my colleagues at Hoops Hype. Mr. Michael Scotto put this together. If you guys haven't checked it out, go check it out at hoopshype.com. Links in the description. By the way, if you guys click on these, I did all our scouting reports at Hoops Hype this year. So if you guys want to go check them out, go check it all out. Another thing I did was our little scouting guide. Again, you can check this out. It has all the scouting reports right there. So let's just get right into it. At number one, we have Zachary Rissachet. And this is definitely very interesting to look at it. And I'm going to pull out my handy dandy phone. But basically, from the way I look at it, I still believe the thought process right here in my mind, and from what other people, yes, Alex Sarr has more boom to bust potential, but the potential is you have a 7'1" guy with really good athleticism, versatility, played on a good team this year off the bench, and he could be a Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson type guy if he works out, in the sense that he's not as good as a rebounder as Evan Mobley, more like Jaren Jackson Jr. If the shot comes down, he'll be more like Jaren Jackson Jr. If the shot doesn't come around, but he's still a good defender, he's kind of gonna be like Evan Mobley right now without the rebounding, where he's a good inside the arc scorer and has a little bit of passing, but can guard arguably like 2 through 5. Now, there is a chance that he's just a rotational role player, and he's closer to the guy that his brother is, as his brother's just blew out his Achilles on a two-way with Oklahoma City Thunder, Olivier Sarr. Great player, though. And that being said, the Atlanta Hawks are seemingly like they want to keep DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. Jalen Johnson, someone they really like at the power forward position, so Sarr doesn't really work out there because he would have to play the power forward. Clint Capella and DeAndre Hunter seem to be two guys that they're trying to trade to get off the luxury tax. So for me, what I'm seeing right here is the guy that, if they were to keep the number one pick, is going to be Zachary Rissachet, because he fits, and he played on a really good team this past year in the French league, and he's a guy who's more closer to like a Cam Johnson, Michael Porter Jr. esque guy. And best case scenario, he kind of becomes like a Kyle Kuzma kind of guy, but he's kind of really small in terms of like size and stuff, but he's more of like a 3-and-D, solid rebounding 3 who can help you right now. So that would help out the Hawks. But this is the big buck. The San Antonio Spurs are a team that we are hearing reported right now. So today we saw in a report that the San Antonio Spurs are having discussed with the Hawks the chance of going up to 1. So this is a report coming from Kevin O'Connor from the Ringer, so take it with a grain of salt. This is not me, linked in the description from Kevin O'Connor, but this is just what we're reporting. I have not heard this. I've heard more that they're not going to trade the pick, and the expectation is Zachary's going 1. But regardless, the Spurs, fellow Frenchman, he fits perfectly next to Devin Vassell and Victor Wembanyama. And the Spurs have held discussions about the Hawks moving up for the 1 pick. The expectations would be that the Spurs would take Mr. Zachary Rissachet. The reports earlier this month were the Spurs were looking to compete next season, and with the team open to trading anyone but Victor Wembanyama and Devin Vassell. The report also is the Hawks are really interested in Donovan Clingan, because I think they would like the idea of Onyeka Okongwu and Clingan being a rotation. So in my mind, if we had to do like a little quick ski trade for how this would look in some twisted, weird looking scenario, Fanspo, by the way, has a great trade machine. We'd assume the Spurs this is a weak draft, so I don't think it's going to be future draft picks. It would be picks in this year's draft, and then it would be, I think, contracts. And you're like, why contracts? Because the Hawks don't want to pay the luxury tax, and the San Antonio Spurs, all right, give them an opportunity to get off that contracts, and also the Spurs are trying to play into contention next season. So for me, I think the biggest thing for them is looking at this situation and being like, all right, we can actually go ahead and do something that works out really well for us. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Do you guys agree with me? Like that, it just makes sense for them to want to go ahead and do a trade with. All right, you guys see this on the screen. So it would be, first off, they would waive Devontae Graham. This is just a crapshoot. This is the only reason I would see the Hawks willingly wanting to do this trade. I don't think it be happening that they would trade the number 1 pick, because you just don't trade the number 1 pick. But the pick would be the number 4 pick and the number 8 pick, plus Charles Bassey, who's out with a torn ACL, but he'll be back to start the season. Julian Champagnie. Both Champagnie, Bassey have no guaranteed money this year, so they could be immediately waived. Devontae Graham only has $2.8 million guaranteed out of that 12.6, so they could waive him. Right there, they would save like $15 million. Plus, in this deal, the Hawks are saving about $20 million, and they would get this year, the 4th and 8th pick. If they have the 4th pick, they're going to be able to get Donovan Clingan, because Reed Shepard's probably going 3rd. 2nd is going to be Alex Sarr if Ricochet goes number 1. And then they send out Clint Capella, Clint Capella and Zach Collins can be the rotation next to Victor Wembanyama. And DeAndre Hunter gives them another wing with Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Zachary Ricochet to just give them so much length. And that, yes, they get AJ Griffin thrown in there because the Hawks just want to move on from him. And the Spurs get the number 1 pick. Now, Trey Jones is the only player of value that the Hawks get. Plus, they get, the 4th and 8th pick. I expect with the 4th pick that they would do Clingan. And then with the 8th pick, they would probably take like Dalton Connect, if he's still available, just because he fits. But we're going to continue with this draft. That was just what I wanted to say if this would happen. I just think it's just, if this were to happen, it's just such in a crapshoot. And it's more, I personally think this is a deal that benefits the Spurs. People would be like, oh, why would the Spurs? First off, Clint Capella is an expiring contract. DeAndre Hunter only has a year left on that deal, where it'd be really annoying, and then it becomes an expiring deal. So it'd really be a 1-year investment, and you're giving up no future assets. It's a win-win for everybody there. Plus, the Spurs and Hawks, their front offices are kind of intertwined, because a lot of the Hawks guys are former Spurs people. So there's just that. Now, look, the rest, Washington taking Alex Sarr, we talked about it. That's 7'1". You just don't pass up on that. Next up, Houston, Reed Shepard. They have Alperen Şengün and Jabari Smith, who are perfect next to each other. One's an offensive guy, and Alperen Şengün. The other's defensive 3-and-D guy, and Jabari Smith. It works. They have a backup center in Jock Landale, who's on a non-guaranteed deal that they can move on from and get a better guy. They need a hair apprentice to Fred VanVleet. Reed Shepard's more of an undersized combo guard in the lines of a smaller Kirk Heinrich, but he could be developed behind Fred VanVleet until that deal, they move on from Fred. And he's perfect. He plays defense, spaces the floor. He fits next to, if they keep Jalen Green, he fits next to Dylan Brooks. He fits this team. It's just what they need, and he fits that. The only other guy I could see is Stephen Castle. If San Antonio keeps the pick, Stephen Castle, he's a Marcus Smart type guy. And if he doesn't work out as a point guard, he can either be a shooting guard or a swing man, in the vein of Mr. Kind of like a Tyreek Evans with more defense. Now, Mateus Buzelis people want to say he's like Franz Wagner. I say he's more of the lines of just a Nick Batum, and I think he's a solid player. Detroit taking him just fits, and they don't need any more guards. They don't need any more, pure centers or like 4-5s or 5-4s. They need a guy who's a combo forward, and this is what they give him. And then if Charlotte were to keep the pick, they're saying Donovan Clingan here. I think that just means they're going to trade the pick, like it's insinuated here. If he does fall there, I think they rather go get a player who can help them win now, and they can get value by trading back. Portland being connected to Dalton Connect, supposedly they really like him, and it makes sense if they were trying to go out and get him. San Antonio, if you're like, why would they take 2 guards in Topic and taking over here earlier Stephen Castle? Castle's Topic. If Castle doesn't work out as a point guard, Topic could be the point guard. I think Topic has the highest ceiling in this draft. And if Topic, is coming from an injury, he's coming back from an injury. So Castle can start this year. And both, like Castle, Topic and Castle are both guys that if they don't work out as pure point guards, they could either be shooting guards or, undersized wings. So they're guys that could play any position, their development. I think at the very least, they're both role players. Rob Dillingham to Memphis. Since Tyus Jones, they haven't had a solid point guard that gives it there. And if they were to trade, this is a spot that people would want because Rob Dillingham's an instant spark plug. Utah being connected to Mr. Ron Holland makes sense. They need a wing, or they could go for a point guard, but they have more picks in this draft. So if they could do that, or they could go in free agency or the trade market to get an established point guard if they're trying to win now. Tajon Saloon going to Chicago just makes sense. He's a guy who's a similar body type as Rui Hachimura, but he has like Aaron Gordon athleticism. He's a freak, and he's a guy who played on a solid team in France. Oklahoma City being tied to Cody Williams. He's a guy who could go higher. I think he's a guy that he has a really high floor. I think worst case scenario, he's kind of like a Patrick Williams, Torrey Craig, really solid, spot starter, really good player, 3-and-D guy, but he could also develop into one of the perennial two-way players. Sacramento being connected to Devin Carter we switched to the paper copy because it was glitching out, but Devin Carter fits right there. He's kind of like, he really could be the next iteration of Derek White. It's absurd to really say that. Now moving on to Jared McCain, he's kind of been compared as like the next coming of like a Seth Curry type guy, and he kind of fits perfectly. Shaden Sharp, I think, is more of a wing, and Scoot, Seth, Scoot, I don't know why I said Seth, Jared, Shaden kind of really work out well. And then especially that we had Portland earlier taking at 7 Dalton Connect. Now you have, kind of in a weird way, you could say, all right, Connect starts, and then you have Jared McCain be the 6th man, or even have Connect and McCain off the bench, and you keep Simons this year, Shaden and Scoot, and then down the road it allows you to move down from Simons. Either way, we can move on from that. Collier, I don't see him going to Miami, but I see him as a guy, he's kind of like Jaden Ivey, not this, like in terms of their athleticism is different. Collier's more of a physical, huge, big body guy, but he's kind of like Jerome Felton in my opinion. I just don't know in the NBA what he's going to be. I don't see him being a Miami guy, but I do see them being a team that would trade back to get somebody else that they think they can get later. Jacoby Walters, kind of like Al Burks, and Philadelphia really likes him. Tristan Da Silva is the next iteration, in my opinion, of the man himself, the guy by the name of Larry Nance Jr., and he fits the Lakers. Lakers could go for a big here. Orlando needs a backup big with Goga Bitadze going away and Ryman accidentally. Zach Edey, Khalil Ware fits that mold. I think Zach Edey lands in Toronto. I think Khalil Ware fits Orlando. I think Khalil Ware is also the Derek Lively of this draft class. Now, Carlton Carrington's a very similar player to another player on the Cavaliers roster, and that is Karis LeVert. So they get a younger and a little smaller version of Karis LeVert, that, herky-jerky style kind of guy who can play multiple positions. Now, moving on from there, I think he's solid. He fits what they need, another kind of combo guard. While Kyle Filipowski going to New Orleans is perfect, they need someone to replace Jonas Valanciunas. He fits the what they need in a big. Plus, they can bring in a big like Mason Plumlee could help them out. Tyler Kolek, they can't get TJ McConnell, so let's get the next best thing. Another solid white dude out of Marquette and Tyler Kolek. Keyshawn George, I don't know if a contender like Milwaukee's going to take him, but he's a point forward who can shoot it out of Miami. Shout out to you, baby. That's where I go right now, even though I'm rocking my alma mater, my undergraduate. I'm right now doing my PhD, just finished my master's at PU. I'm about to continue. Now, Yves Messie's perfect for New York, especially if they lose Isaiah Hardenstein. Ryan Dunn's another great player for them, fits perfectly with the Tom Thibodeau. Wizards taking a Tyler Smith guy who's either going to work out like a PJ Washington guy or John Collins, depending if he's a combo forward or if he's a big. He told me he's more of a combo forward. Johnny Furphy, there's a chance we lose Kyle Anderson in Minnesota, so taking Johnny Furphy gives them some 3 with some scrappiness and defense. Deron Holmes could be the Zeke Nnaji replacement if they want to trade him and free up some money. I think Deron Holmes could go earlier. Bobby Clipman's a project and he's a guy who's stiff like Bobby Portis. Can kind of rebound, put the ball on the deck, shoot it, shot block. I don't really know if he's a 2, I'm not 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5. You got to choose that. Baylor Shireman is exactly what Boston loves. 3-point shooters who's got grit. Jalen Tyson's kind of like a Josh Hart. Pacome Diet is, I really want to say, like, first off, I want to admit that we got first like shorten this up because these are about to get complicated. But I want to say that I'm not the most educated on him. He's, from what I understand, is he's got size, and he's a really good 3-point shooter. I've seen tape on him. I've never seen him in person. The way I look at it is kind of like a Cam Reddish right now. Terrence Shannon's a fantastic kind of a Torrey Craig guy. Kevin McCullough over here, he's the guy that people are going to be like, oh, he's the Herb Jones. Cam Christie, very similar to his brother Max Christie, good frame. AJ Johnson, 6'4" with athleticism, could be a 2 or a 1. Nikola Jurisic, when I interviewed him, he said, he thinks he's a less athletic Anthony Edwards. He says people tell him Joe Johnson. When I see Nikola Jurisic, I think, what do I think? Probably like a Tomas Downowski. Justin Edwards, I know some people have said, I forget what was in the mock draft, but I didn't agree with it. I think he's kind of like a bigger Trevor Ariza. Melvin Ajinsa's like a mere coffee. Adembona an athletic freak. Pele Larson, he's kind of a 3-and-D guy. Dylan Jones, I think, could go earlier. He's kind of a Royce O'Neal. Jamal Sheed's a defensive dog. Ajay Mitchell is, I think, from Belgium or the Netherlands. I think Belgium. And he's a really good, defender who's got a good 3-point shot. Harrison Ingram going to Sacramento. He's a guy who's like a Joe Ingles, who I think could be solid. Jonathan Mogba reminds me of like a Christian De Silva, just an undersized 5 who plays the 4. KJ Simpson could be one of the best guards out this draft. Trenton Flowers is like a jack of all, master of none, jack of all trades, master of none, but really toolsy guy at 6'8". Enrique Freeman's going to be a stud. He's a 6'7" rebounding maestro who's got a good 3-point shot. He's going to be in the league for a while. Keyshawn Johnson's kind of like a Ron Hollis. Jefferson, he wants to be a big, but he's 6'7", but like not in like just a huge. Oso Iguodala could really be the Trace Jackson Davis of this draft class. PJ Hall's got a good combination of shot blocking, passing, 3-point shot. I really like his game. Juan Yunez is a defensive, kind of like a, not like a Juan, no, it's not Raul. Raul Neto, the Brazilian. He's not like that. He's more in the same vein as a, he's a good passer, but he's defensively and he scores inside the arc. Interesting game. Kind of, oddly enough, kind of like a Kellyan Hayes, no offense. Bronny James is like an Avery Bradley type guy. Trey Alexander, I really like him going to Denver. He could be a guy who could, back up Jamal. Jalen Wells has got a great 3-point shot. Ulrich Chamachi is just too far away, in my opinion. He's too raw, but if you want to take a chance on him, take a chance on him. Let me hear your thoughts on that, guys.